December 1978. North Atlantic. Winter. 1 distress call. Then silence. 28 crew never found. Windows smashed on a cruise liner. 8 stories above the water. These aren't myths. These are official incident reports. Insurance claims. Coast Guard investigations. Long before scientists were willing to listen, sailors were already trying to tell them. The reports kept coming. The establishment kept dismissing them. The official position was clear. Such waves were statistically impossible. The models said so. The equations confirmed it. Then a captain, not in an interview, not in a memoir, but in his official log, described what he saw ahead of his ship as the closest thing he could compare it to. A cliff. That was one of the few ships that survived. Throughout the 1800s, logbooks filled up with the same description: a single wall of water, rising without warning from a sea that moments before had seemed manageable. Not a storm surge, not a series of building waves. One wave, appearing, then gone. In 1826, the British vessel Cleopatra logged an encounter with a towering mass of water breaking over the deck from an otherwise unremarkable sea. In 1861, something struck the Eagle Island Lighthouse off Ireland with enough force to shatter windows more than 60 meters above sea level. No storm on record that day accounted for it. In December 1942, the RMS Queen Mary, carrying over 11,000 troops across the Atlantic, was broadsided by a wave so large the ship listed more than 50 degrees. 3 degrees more, and she would have capsized, taking everyone aboard with her. The incident received little publicity at the time. The ocean didn't do that, but ships kept vanishing, reports kept getting filed, and the scientific consensus held firm: human error, structural failure, navigational mistake. Pick one: never the wave. The SS Edmund Fitzgerald disappeared on Lake Superior in November 1975 with all 29 crew. No mayday, no survivors. A nearby vessel reported 3 enormous waves striking in quick succession, each arriving before the ship could recover from the last. The Fitzgerald may have been overwhelmed in seconds. What makes it significant beyond the tragedy is the location. Lake Superior, freshwater, hundreds of kilometers from any ocean. The ocean had no monopoly on the mechanism. It just had more room to build. In 1978, the MS München was one of the most advanced cargo vessels ever built, designed to withstand anything the ocean could produce. And yet somewhere between Bremerhaven and Savannah, Georgia, it simply ceased to exist. When search teams finally found a piece of the wreck, what they discovered made no sense. The starboard lifeboat had been torn from its mounting. That lifeboat was stowed 6 stories above the waterline. Something had hit it from the front and ripped it clean off as if it were nothing. Nobody had an explanation. So they wrote "unusual weather event" in the report and moved on. They were wrong, and the truth they were avoiding would take another 17 years to prove. For most of the 20th century, the official scientific position was that the kind of wave capable of sinking the München appearing suddenly in open ocean at heights far beyond the surrounding sea was mathematically impossible. Not unlikely, not rare, impossible. And so when sailors described walls of water appearing from nowhere, climbing 10 stories high in seconds, the scientific community's response was always the same: you're wrong. You miscalculated. You panicked. The ocean does not do that. Then came New Year's Day, 1995. At 3:24 in the afternoon, a laser sensor on the Draupner oil platform recorded something that should, by every model in existence, have been impossible. A wave 25.6 meters, 84 feet tall in a sea where surrounding waves were already 4 stories high, more than twice the height of anything around it, appearing without warning, gone within seconds. The researchers assumed a sensor malfunction. They checked. The sensor was fine. The data was real. It even had a trough in front of it, a deep hole in the sea that would have pitched any ship's bow downward a full second before the wall hit. By the time crew saw it coming, they would already be pointing at it. The Draupner data forced a reckoning, and once scientists started looking, the mathematics of what had been happening became brutal. After 1995, scientists started asking whether the rules had ever been right. The European Space Agency analyzed 3 weeks of satellite radar data as part of the MaxWave project. The findings, published in 2004, were staggering. In those 3 weeks alone, more than 10 individual waves over 8 stories tall were identified across the world's oceans. Against models that had suggested such waves might occur once a decade. The waves weren't random either. They clustered in specific corridors: the Agulhas Current off South Africa, the North Atlantic, the Southern Ocean. Scientists could now identify where rogue waves were most likely to form. What they still couldn't do was predict when. The where became knowable, the when remained out of reach. In September 1995, just months after the Draupner measurement, the Queen Elizabeth II was crossing the North Atlantic when her captain encountered a wave he estimated the height of a 10-story building moving toward the ship in the darkness. He described it in his official log as resembling the White Cliffs of Dover. Canadian weather buoys in the area recorded waves approaching the same height, independently confirming what the crew had seen. This was no longer a sailor's story. It was documented, cross-referenced, and on record. Here is what a rogue wave actually looks like, because the word wave does not prepare you for it. A normal large wave is a slope, steep but a slope. A ship can ride it. A rogue wave is a wall, vertical face, sometimes with a dark trough directly ahead. That hole in the sea that pitches the bow downward before the wall arrives. The wave doesn't break at the crest the way a normal wave does. A moving cliff with no warning and no run-up. Survivors describe the same sequence every time, across different decades, different oceans, different vessels. The drop, the wall, the impact, not a wave. A cliff. The forces involved are beyond what most structures are designed to resist. A breaking rogue wave can exert pressure of 100 tons per square meter against a ship's hull. The hull of the München wasn't built for that. Neither is anything currently sailing. The story doesn't end in 1995. It gets worse. In November 2022, the Viking Polaris, a brand new expedition cruise ship purpose-built for polar waters with a reinforced ice-class hull, was crossing the Drake Passage between South America and Antarctica when a massive wave struck the side of the vessel. Cabin windows shattered, rooms flooded, passengers were thrown off their feet. One person died. This was not an aging vessel. It was not sailing beyond its rated conditions. It was a ship built specifically for some of the harshest waters on Earth. The wave did not care. The Drake Passage is a known clustering zone, exactly the conditions that produce rogue waves. The crew knew the waters were dangerous. Knowing a region produces rogue waves is not the same as knowing when the next one is coming. That gap between knowing where and knowing when is the defining characteristic of every incident. The München, the Fitzgerald, the QE2, the Viking Polaris. In every case, the crew was experienced. The ship was rated for the conditions. And something arrived that the conditions had no business producing. Climate change is now making those conditions more common. A 2022 study published in Science confirmed that wave heights in the Southern Ocean have increased measurably over the past 3 decades, and that extreme wave events are becoming more frequent. The clustering zones are expanding. The intervals between extreme events are shrinking. And the models, the same models that spent most of the 20th century insisting rogue waves were impossible, then spent the next 2 decades mapping where they occur, are now being asked to close the final gap, predicting not just where, but when. The researchers doing that work will tell you honestly that they are not there yet. The ocean is changing faster than the forecasting tools can track. What they do know is this: the Draupner wave was 25.6 meters, 84 feet. It was the wave that proved the impossible was real. It was confirmed by instruments, verified by sensors, and it ended a century of denial. But it was not the largest wave the ocean has ever made. It was simply the first one we were in the right place to measure. Every wave before it, the one that took the München, the one that swallowed the Fitzgerald, the one that tore steel apart 8 stories above the waterline of ships no one believed could sink, those were real too. We just had no instrument pointed at them when they came.